Last week, we got one version of the events around Colorado-Nebraska. Wednesday night, we saw the real story. That's next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
All right. Good morning. Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone in Omaha and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, I like the tease there at the beginning. Almost a little Paul Harvey, you know. Now you know the
rest of the story.
The rest of the story. Yeah, there is more to this story. And we saw behind the scenes via the Chasing 3 documentary. Shout out to those guys, first of all, because they're providing this show, my radio show. Mitch might write about it. Who knows?
It's possible, yes.
With fantastic content, and I think Husker fans have probably been looking forward to this one all week, just to see some of the behind the scenes, the things that were said, and the emotions that went into Nebraska and Colorado on Saturday night. And it finally dropped late Wednesday night, about 9:15. And there's a lot to get into, Mitch. Where do we start with this? Is it Marcus Satterfield's thing to yell, "How about them apples"? Because that seems like it had happened before.
He may have done that before. That was, yeah. I mean, it's like, channeling his inner Matt Damon. I mean, I don't know. Is that
pretty good?
My biggest thing with this is we thought all week, I suspected, and I kind of felt it in these corners of the Nebraska football universe, that the Huskers were very angry going into that game. I saw some evidence of it in the pregame when Nebraska players came on the field, but we had no idea. Like, we really did not know the extent. I mean, sure, you could put the pieces together, but like, we didn't know the details. So the Chasing 3 doc starts with a scene from last February. And I'm like, why are they going back to February? This is odd. And you see Matt Rhule come out in front of the team, and he talks about how they're going to be ready to play on September 7th. Okay. All right. He's talking about Colorado. Talking about Colorado in February. And he says, we're going to do this drill called Primetime. And it was some specific drill, and it involved the coaches also throwing around plates and on the air bike. Yeah. And they were swinging the ropes. So I don't think that was just for the camera. Like, those guys were sweating out some calories right there with the players. And that's it. Like, that's the setup that you get for what Nebraska Colorado meant within the Nebraska program. Lots of highlights, lots of stuff we can talk about. But for me, it was interesting to see it start then.
Oh, totally. I mean, you kind of had a good, like, cinematically is like really well done. You had a really good sense of, oh, okay, this is going this direction. Nebraska definitely felt some type of way about it. And like you said, Mitch, we talked about it all week. Like, this has to be a thing behind closed doors. And it is, while still maintaining the message of like, hey, it's about us and it's about the football, make it about the football, make it about us. And you heard a lot of that throughout, but it's hard to, because it's so emotional. And, I think it meant so much to the guys in that locker room. Rhule said, and I think after the game, he went back and said, hey, nobody picked this up in my press conference on Monday. And I was talking about how I got a bunch of guys who I think are going to go out defend me. He was asked about Shedeur Sanders' comments toward him after the game last year. And he said, no big deal, but I got a bunch of guys in that locker room. And he was like, oh, so he felt some type of way about it. He enjoyed it. Jamari Butler gave Matt Rhule the game ball afterwards, which then there was a second one, and it was given to Bud Crawford afterwards. He was featured heavily in this episode. There was I mean, Tom Osborne spoke to the team, Ron Brown spoke to the team. There was a Brooke Behringer part. I mean, it was definitely and the part. Well, I realize I'm bouncing all over the place now, but it was a nationally televised game. It was a big game. It was a big showcase game for NBC. It ended up being the second most watched game of the week in college football after Texas and Michigan in general. And Matt Rhule said one of the things that they had done when they had big national games at Baylor was to if they get a request from national media publications or whatever to follow around the team and be embedded with the team all week, we let them do it. And they wanted their players to feel the big game atmosphere, so it wasn't foreign to them. It didn't hit them like a ton of bricks on Saturday. And I think that really played out. And speaking of, getting hit like a ton of bricks, I mean, I don't think Colorado was really at all prepared for all the emotion behind what Nebraska gave them on Saturday night.
I don't think they had any idea what was coming at them. I mean,
No.
It's not like Nebraska. I mean, we're not trying to make Nebraska out to be Georgia. It's not like, oh, they had no idea how great the team was they were playing against. No, that's not what I'm talking about. They didn't know what was going on behind the scenes at Nebraska. And how could you? Like for Colorado, it was all, yeah, we rolled these guys last year, beat them 36-14, and that's with Shadur getting sacked 8 times. Like, this is no problem. We're going to go out there. Like, this is the least of our worries. Like, we're more concerned about Colorado State because they took us to OT last year. Like, let's just get past week 2. And I really think that Colorado felt that way to some degree.
I totally agree. It's something that we mentioned in the lead up to the game. and I think you were going to say this, but pretty well drawn out in the scene of the coin toss, where Shiloh Sanders and the captains all meet at midfield, and Shiloh Sanders is caught on tape laughing in Nebraska player's face and saying that they're gonna roll them. Go ahead.
He said, "Boy, we about to roll you." So it was like he was questioning Nebraska's confidence, which I think is worse than just predicting.
I know
that. It's like, we're coming to get you. Like, that'd be one thing. Okay. But it was like he was telling them how he thought they felt Shiloh was.
It's great. That program is so far up their own butt. They have like it, how could they have known? And Nebraska kept it quiet. Nebraska tried to not make it public, but it was also Colorado, being so about itself, and that's always the conversation, and whatever. Like, how could they have known that? How could they have known?
Shiloh on Wednesday was posting video of himself from the hospital where he just underwent surgery to repair the broken arm that Dante Dowdell fractured on the first Nebraska drive of the game. So that's how it went for Shiloh. He actually did get rolled in that game. He got rolled over backwards on the turf when he was hit by Nebraska's running back. And, the Buffs, I think, have taken this, at least publicly, I'm sure it's been difficult inside, but Shiloh was in good spirits in the video that we saw on social media this week. And Travis Hunter, as we talked about on the show Wednesday, was very complimentary of Nebraska and, lauding the Nebraska crowd, saying it was legit. It was a top 10 crowd and the light show was amazing. So, okay. Good on those guys for having that attitude after the game. It's tough to have what I assume is a season-ending injury with Shiloh Sanders when you're having surgery to fix a broken arm. I don't know. Maybe he's back at the end.
Yeah, that's not the way that they were talking about it. They were saying just a couple weeks, which I don't.
Oh,
I don't
okay. How does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, all right. Maybe just put a pin in or something like that.
His arm's broken. 2 to 3 weeks. It's fine. That's what they were saying.
All right. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention when you talked about how Rhule said he told the team, you're going to see media around this week, and I want you guys to feel it during the week because you're going to feel it on Saturday night. So they had Nicole Auerbach interviewed on camera, and she talked about how Colorado lives on camera. Like they live in front of the cameras. So none of this is new to them. And, we're interested to see from a national perspective, like how is Nebraska going to react when the cameras are there on them. And, little did she know, our friend Nicole, who finds the pod really informative. Those are her thoughts about the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Nicole's great, but little did they know they were part of the Nebraska preparation, that Matt Rhule was using this NBC experience to get the Huskers ready for things, so that when the lights were shining bright on Saturday, that, hey, we've been dealing with this all week.
Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff. And there's a whole bunch more that we can unpack, and we'll continue to do so. And then we'll kind of ask, how do you come down from this? All of that we are still going to approach here in the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Remember, you can like and subscribe us. And in fact, we implore you to do so. Do it now, or you can email us lockedonneb@gmail.com. Like and subscribe the show. It helps us out. And we will continue on when we come back on the Locked On Nebraska podcast.
All right, Mitch Sherman here to tell you about Factor meals, because warm and sunny days are here. It's still nice out. It's September, so fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. You can meet your wellness goals with a menu of chef-crafted meals that include options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes. You got that kind of time. So no matter how busy you are, you can enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. What are you waiting for? Do it today. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always find new flavors to explore. Make your day delicious. They've got breakfast, dessert, and everything in between to stay fueled up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Use the code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. What a great deal. Check it out at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege.
All right, and I'd like to tell you about the FanDuel Sportsbook. Something a little different going for you, but we also have more included with the FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. Listen up. If you're betting football over the weekend and you're watching football over the weekend, we got something for you now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And then there's more. If that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of Double Your Winnings. I can't emphasize this enough. This is a huge deal. Now, the Profit Boost will be live starting today, and you got to claim it by the end of the night. You got to claim it by, I think it's 7:30 Central. At least that's what it says on my page. So claim that Profit Boost, then bet on a game, straight up money line on Sunday, and double your winnings. That's a pretty good deal. Pre-game money line bets. Profit Boost will be live starting today. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. Just head to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Download America's #1 sportsbook today.
All right, we're back on this Thursday. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic here with Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone. So we are talking about the Chasing 3 documentary that Nebraska put out, all about the Colorado week, the lead up to that game, going back 7 months before the game, really going back to last year. There were comments from Matt Rhule in this documentary about things that happened on the field last year and how that played into the Huskers' motivation in welcoming the Buffs to Memorial Stadium on Saturday night. A lot of good stuff from inside the locker room, inside the meeting room. Let's talk here about the impact that Bud Crawford had. We went into this early in the week, but we hadn't seen his speech to the team. So we knew that Bud was waiting outside the team meeting room at the hotel on Friday night after Nebraska got back from watching a movie. Matt Rhule showed a video, and they showed the whole video in the Chasing 3 doc. This is a video that Bud's team put together and sent to Nebraska with highlights and lead up to his fight against Errol Spence last year, and then ultimately knocking Spence out. So it was a good kind of like parallel between what Nebraska faced, the challenge, and like the disrespect that Nebraska felt. A lot of disrespect was directed toward Bud Crawford before he fought Spence. And that's where Nebraska said, hey, we're like him. We're like Bud, because look what Colorado did to us last year. Look how they talked about us. Look how they refused to shake our hands after the game because whatever, the field was being rushed. That was their excuse. And so he showed the video, and then out came Bud. And you could see it. They showed the Nebraska players like locked in on Bud as he spoke to them. And he said, they're coming in here to take what you all got. I'm from Nebraska. Believe in yourself. Believe in your team. Anything is possible. I'm fighting with you all. I'm tired of holding the state on my back. I've been doing this since 2008. Last time I recall, I'm 41-0. I don't know losing, especially at home. Like, what a great message from Bud.
Yeah, he goes, if you lose, you're going to have to come see me. And that was a great line. So and we talked about the parallels from his message to what Rhule was talking about all week, which I think is just perfect. And as a result of that, it appeared that he addressed the team 4 times in the span of 24 hours.
Halftime, postgame,
in the hotel on Friday night, pregame, halftime, and postgame. Which, I mean, he is an incredible representative for the state, and the story, like I said, just locks in perfectly with what Nebraska's trying to do. And I think he's gotten a lot better at this type of stuff over his career too. Just getting that message out there, and he knows the kids kind of listen to him and they know who he is. So I think that's it's awesome. And I think, to go back to kind of bring back in that Shiloh coin toss part too, that message, Nebraska was really emotional, and it was an emotional game, and they had this edge to them. And there's so many clips in there of Terence Knighton,
Terence Knighton didn't talk in the whole thing, and he said more than just about anybody else.
He said so many bad words. It was incredible. They were all bleeped out. But so there was clearly this edge, but the message was all week, hey, let's make it about the football. And so when Shiloh comes up in the coin toss, and he laughs in their face, and he says, we're going to roll you guys. And it goes back to the message that Bud was sending as well. Ty Robinson said, all right. And Nebraska just that could have been so much different if Nebraska approaches that in a different way, and the core message isn't, hey, let's just go out there and let our football do the talking. It wasn't. Nebraska just stood there, and they got the last laugh. And they got the first, second, third, and last laugh. So I think that all of that is tied up in the messaging that was sent to the team all week.
How about the way that Nebraska played into the 1994 reunion? And there's so much to address for Nebraska in this week. Like, you had all of the disrespect, all of the Colorado stuff, all of the Bud Crawford stuff, and then there was this 94 reunion, and that was significant to Colorado because for those guys, Colorado meant something deep also. And there was the 94 Nebraska-Colorado game, which was kind of the game of the season for Nebraska that year. And they were all coming back. And Rhule, it was unclear exactly when this took place, late in the week, I think. But he got up in front of the team and told them about the reunion. And then Tom Osborne came out. Like, you're bringing all the big guns out for 1 week, like Bud Crawford, Tom Osborne. And we heard Ron Brown tell the Nebraska players all about Brooke Berringer. And there's no one better in the world to talk about Brooke Berringer and the impact that he had at Nebraska than Ron Brown, who was on that Osborne coaching staff and was incredibly close with the late Brooke Berringer. He told them the story about how he led the team through the 94 season. And then in 95, well, this was Osborne telling him, in 95, he had to sit because Tommy Frazier reclaimed the job. And then he died in a plane crash in 96. And the entire team went to the funeral, not because of what happened in 94 when Brooke led the team to a championship, but because of what happened in 95 when he sat on the bench and wasn't a distracting force. And then you go into to Jan Beringer, Brooke's mother, and his sister there on campus last week, presenting the annual Brooke Beringer scholarship to Jamari Butler. And I mean, it all was very full circle. Very, very well put together.
Yeah. I mean, there was emotion behind everything they did last week, which, I mean, that was something that I was concerned about at first. Like they're approaching this so plainly, and that we just have to do one thing and do the other thing. And now it feels like that they have that piece of it down. They have the fundamentals of it down. They have the, like, let's be a good football team part of it. Now they can add in the extra stuff. Now they can bring in, all these other things. And you don't have to so much worry about Nebraska getting distracted anymore, because that core message is still there. It was a bunch of challenges last week. It was obviously the football game, but all this stuff that we've talked about today too. I mean, that would have been a real challenge for the old version of Nebraska. In a year that they've made a lot of progress, I think, in that category.
Yeah, and we got the pregame locker room stuff from Rhule. You already earned it. Now go take what's rightfully yours. You heard Sat with his phrase, "How about them apples?" And we heard from Tony White too. It's funny, they played the Sat, the Marcus Satterfield clip, where he got in front of the offense and said, "I don't have much to say, guys," and he kind of spoke for a minute and then screamed out the Goodwill Hunting line. And then they flashed to Tony White talking to the defense, and it was happening at the same time. And you heard Sat in the background screaming the same thing again. And Tony kind of looked up like, what was that?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think Tony knew that he had to raise his game in that moment too. He got
it. Like, all right, Satterfield's got those guys going. So, all right. So we're going to spin this forward a little bit in this third segment and talk about what this means for Nebraska moving forward, because they rode such a high coming into this game, and how are they going to go into the Big Ten after this week and go back to that level? That's obviously their goal. That's coming up next. All right, Mitch Sherman here to tell you about LinkedIn, one of the sponsors of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for your role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It has the tools to help you find the professionals who are right for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively searching for a new job. Did you know that in a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites? So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you are looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, Mitch, the question for this week is not how Nebraska will prepare for Northern Iowa. It's how they will really prepare themselves coming off of this emotional high. And like, I think the same goes for the rest of the season. It's not I don't know that Nebraska's at the risk of being complacent, but that edge that they had, that they brought into Saturday night against Colorado, undoubtedly helped them start as well as they did in the football game. They're not going to have much of that edge this time around.
Yeah.
Whether they like it or not, this one's going to feel a little bit different, although it will still be at night. I don't know. So maybe that still helps.
Yeah, we talked a lot this week about how Nebraska was going to be just fine coming down from the Colorado game because they had this poorly executed second half to use as motivation for week 3. And after seeing everything that went into week 2 in the Colorado buildup, I'm not so sure about that. Like, I'm not so sure like that is an equal replacement. Like, okay, so you had everything in line to get you revved up for Colorado, and now we're going to take much of that away. And but oh, you played bad in the second half. You had a lot of penalties. Matt Rhule called out the perimeter blocking, the special teams. Like, that's something. It's there. But I don't think it's going to get you back to the level that you were at, like frothing at the mouth before kickoff last week. It probably doesn't need to be. It definitely doesn't need to be in this game. My question is, when they get to Illinois next Friday, like where's the huge buildup coming for that? Even when they go to Ohio State and it's more sterile on the road, the atmosphere, or when you play Rutgers, or when you go to USC, like Nebraska has set the standard for its anticipation, its motivation, its anger, its readiness to play so high with this week 2 bonanza that there are parts. I know Matt Rhule said after the game, he said, we just bided our time today. The program won. Oh, and then he said, at the end of the year, this will not be our highlight. We've got way bigger plans. Yeah, he's got to beat that drum. I'm interested to see how he does it because
I think the hope is that because of this newfound success, like I think what he's tried to do is train them so that when this moment arrived, that they would maintain their hunger. Obviously, you can't, you're just not going to have the kind of buzz that you came in with last Saturday night, and that's okay. You won't need it on Saturday, but you will need it at other times during the year. And like you said, it's going to be tough to replicate at Ohio State. But like the hope is that Nebraska, they have this number 23 next to their name now, and people are talking about him a little bit, and they're interested in the quarterback and they're interested in the defense. Now that there is no longer just the inner standard to uphold. There is now this external, like, you better beat Northern Iowa by X amount of points. You better beat Illinois. You better beat Purdue, whatever it might be. Like there is that a little bit now. And whether they want to talk about that or not, because football teams and football coaches don't want to talk about what people think about them, but it's something that you can't avoid. Like it's all there. So maybe that there's that kind of external, pressure, I guess would be the right word for it. That Nebraska reacts well to it, but make no mistake about it. It's going to be just about impossible to replicate that edge, both from the player's standpoint and from the fan standpoint. Like that, as we talked about all last week, we haven't seen a game like that in that building for at least 10 years, potentially more. So yeah, it's just, that was a rare one, and you hope that you keep the momentum, that it springboards you forward in this season.
We're going to hear a lot of talk about bring your own juice. That's going to be a common phrase that if maybe a little bit next week when Illinois comes into town, although I think the atmosphere is going to be ripe on a Friday night, Big Ten opener. There's plenty to play for. Hey, if there's a team that feels jilted, if there's a team that feels like it should have a chip on its shoulder in that game, it's probably going to be Illinois, because there was a Friday night game in Champaign last year where Nebraska kind of got over against Illinois. Not in the same way that Colorado did against Nebraska last year, but the Huskers had the fourth down goal line stand, and Illinois is going to be thinking about that and how Nebraska celebrated that and pointed to it as a turning point in like the growth of its program, and like, hey, we're not here for them to step on our shoulders to build themselves up. That's not who we are as a football program. That's that little factor is gonna favor Illinois in this game. So I somewhat have some interest in how the motivation plays out for that one. But it's a home game for Nebraska, and I think they'll be fine. When they really have to bring their own juice is a week later, going to Purdue on a random Saturday at the end of September, and you're playing a team that was picked to finish last in the Big Ten, but a team that's dangerous, like Purdue picked 18th in the Big Ten. Are you confident right now? Like, what would be the line if Nebraska played Purdue this week? Like 10 at the most?
That was kind of the first number that came up into my head. No doubt about it, Mitch. Those two road games before Ohio State, at Purdue and at Indiana, should scare the heck out of you. Not just because of what they've done this year, but like you said, I think from this emotional perspective, Nebraska is feeling really good about itself right now. And those two places are notoriously sleepy and there's not a lot of fans there. I mean, like, no offense
Not
to them.
with Kurt Segnetti, it's not sleepy in Bloomington.
Yeah, maybe
Don't you go?
maybe he gets the place jumping. Who knows? But I've never seen a day where Nebraska played Purdue where it wasn't a little damp and gray.
Oh.
You know, so it's
who's getting injured in the pregame of that one? Like,
and it's going to be an 11 o'clock kickoff. So, like,
that is a bring your own juice game.
Nebraska got to find their way around that for sure.
Yeah. Well, we got plenty of time to get to Purdue and Indiana and Ohio State and all of that stuff in Northern Iowa. We're going to talk some more about the Panthers in our Friday show. If you've got questions for us, send them our way. We'll post a reminder at the top of the YouTube comment section for this show. You can send them to us on email at lockedonneb@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at Mitch Sherman, at Connor Happer. We are going to get to those questions on Friday, tomorrow, in the end of the week mailbag session, and we'll go back through our predictions from week 2, which were disgusting and terrible, just in the sense of like how we performed. The predictions themselves were fine. They were just football games, but we did all right in like the Nebraska stuff, but everywhere else it was not great. So that is coming up on Friday. Thank you for being with us today. And thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast singular. Spencer McLaughlin, he gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron that's upcoming as teams get into conference play here in September. You can find the link to that Locked On College Football podcast in the description of this show. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.